night. Like the NC's mentioned, we're going through our Instagram spin-off series, Ask Me a Question, where we try to tackle life's most hardest questions, faith's most hardest questions. If you've been with us the past couple of weeks, this has been kind of some of the questions we tried to tackle so far. Blake talked about, is it even possible to follow Christ in college? A week after that, Tommy talked about, does this faith thing even work? And then just last week, Jordan Edwards actually tackled the question, what am I here for? What is my purpose? Those are awesome messages. If you haven't heard them, man, they're on our YouTube channel. Go check those out. They're awesome. But hey, the question that we're answering tonight is this, is why is Jesus relevant to me? Why is he relevant to me? And whenever I see the word relevant, I'm like, I automatically think of like time. Like some things can be relevant at the moment, and later they're not relevant. I'm getting a little old, guys. I'm 24. That's pretty old for most of you guys. My back popped, getting out of bed this morning. It really did, I promise. So I'm not necessarily in tune with the college culture like you guys are. I need your guys' help. I need you to tell me, hey, what's relevant? What's cool right now? So I'm going to throw something on the screen. Hey, thumbs up if you're like, yes, that's in. Thumbs down if you're like, no, it's over. Hey, what about this first one right here? Sperry's. Thumbs up or thumbs up? No. I see very, hey, very little. Very little thumbs up. Hey, if you're wearing Sperry's tonight, I'm sorry. That one's on me. That one's on me. I'm sorry. Hey, what about for the ladies? Biker shorts? This is there. I hear some girls say no, yes. All I think of when I see biker shorts is this, like this girl running around in biker shorts. That's literally all I think of. What about George for guys? Bring it back, huh? Hey, next time I speak, it might be George. Me emojis. You guys like these? Yes, amen. Yes, yes. I love these things. Hey, this is technically this is my emoji. It kind of sort of looks like me. It also looks like 15,000 other dudes out there. So, but what about this one? TikTok. I just the new Vine, maybe. I don't know. Maybe sort of. Okay. For the ladies, velvet scrunchies, I hear that's a thing. I hear that's a big thing. I see some thumbs down. Thumbs down. A guy actually told me this was in. I was pretty shocked. Fortnite, is it in? Is it out? Oh, it's out. Okay, what about Minecraft? Yeah. This one's probably the most controversial. I feel like it's been an argument forever. What about this one, Crocs? Are they in? Yes, no, maybe. Thumbs up back there. I see it. I like it. Hey, is anybody wearing Crocs tonight? Anybody out there have Crocs? Wow, you got it up, man. Salute. Everybody else? Good work, good work. Man, Crocs, maybe not a valid question, but the question that we're trying to tackle tonight is a very, very valid question. Growing up, I thought all about this question. Why is Jesus relevant? I remember in high school sitting in a church service and thinking like, man, why do people worship this guy? Like, why does he matter? This doesn't necessarily make sense. Why does he mattered? At one point, I was thinking that, and it kind of makes sense. It's like this guy lived so long ago. He lived on the complete opposite side of the planet. Why do people still follow this guy? How does this guy matter to us as college students? And it's a good question to ask, and actually to help me answer, I kind of came up and looked up the word relevant. The word relevant, it actually means this: closely connected or appropriate to what is being done or considered. Appropriate to the current time, period, or circumstances of contemporary interest. So it helps you kind of know what relevant actually is to understand what question are we actually asking tonight. We're not asking, hey, is Jesus cool? We're not asking, hey, is Jesus on the in? Is he mainstream? No, we're not even asking, hey, does Jesus wear Crocs? You know? Because he does, obviously. Google doesn't lie. Google doesn't lie, guys. But on the real, man, the question we're asking tonight is Jesus appropriate for you guys, for this time? Does Jesus matter to us and to you all as college students? And if so, why? How? I'm excited to break it down for you guys tonight. I think one of the best ways to do that is to go back to the Bible and to even read a story of Jesus, his involvement. And the story's kind of cool. There's some weird parts to it, which we'll get there, but I'm excited to break it down. So let's just set the setting for the story first real quick. So 2 verses right here from John 5, 1 and 2. And so it says this: sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for a feast of the Jews. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic called Bethesda, I have no idea if I said that word right, which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. So that's kind of the setting of this story. Now it's talking about a pool, and this isn't just a pool that is, you know, your above ground $200 Walmart pool. This is actually, it's actually a natural spring. Anybody ever been to a natural spring before? Yeah, they're sweet, amazing, beautiful, crystal clear waters. They are gorgeous. It's like breathtaking. So I wanted to give you guys an incredible picture of the setting of the story. It's beautiful. It's amazing. I wanted to give you guys something that would just take your breath away. So I made this PowerPoint real quick. Looks like that. Like a few seconds. So this is what the story is really describing. Hey, I tried hard on this, guys. Love it. But there's a pool, and surrounded by this pool is a bunch of different colonies, basically buildings around this pool. And so that's the setting. Let's keep reading the story. Let's see kind of what's going on around this pool. Here, a great number of disabled people used to lie. The blind, the lame, the paralyzed. From time to time, now this is what the verse said. This isn't what actually happened. But from time to time, an angel of the Lord would come down and stir up the waters. The first one into the pool after each such disturbance would be cured of whatever disease they had. So let's just go back to our story. Let's kind of grasp what's happening here. So from time to time, people will come to this pool, and let's just think, what kind of people are around this pool? We've obviously got our sick dude. We've got kind of our guy who's probably handicapped. We've got the depressed guy. We've got maybe a girl who's sick, has a disease. Then we've got the guy who just rage quit on 2K. And so everybody is around this pool. There's a bunch of people, whether they're depressed or they have anxiety, whatever it is, that is what's around this pool. I worked really hard on this, guys, okay? But here's what would happen, and this is what kind of the story would say, is that an angel supposedly would come down to the pool, and they would kind of stir the water, and then whoever made it to the water first would magically be healed. And that was kind of the pagan superstition of the time. Now, what was actually happening is, if you've ever been to a natural spring, the water actually comes from the ground. And whenever it does, it actually can cause a ripple in the pool. So that was what was happening. But if you think about it, everybody that's around this pool, we've got the physically disabled, and we've also got people who are just depressed and just have a bunch of anxiety. So let's say the water stirs. Who do you think is going to get to the pool first? Probably not the disabled people, right? Probably the people who are physically there but just depressed and anxiety. So that's what would happen, is they would actually get to the pool, and they would get in the water, and they would almost serve as a placebo effect. Have you ever heard of a placebo? It's like a sugar pill. It kind of tricks your mind, makes you think that it's working. So they would get in the water, and they would come out, and they'd be so happy. They'd be like, I got to the water, I'm healed. And they would just be so happy all of a sudden after being so depressed for so long. And that's why people thought that this worked. But the reality was that the happiness only lasted so long. And because nothing about these people's lives changed. It's just at one moment they were happy, and then it didn't last forever. So that's kind of the setting of the story. Let's see what happens when Jesus comes on the scene and he walks into this setting right here. It says this, John 5, and then 5 through 6. One who was there had been invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him a very, very important question, which we'll get to later tonight. He asked him, do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? This is what the guy said. This is how he responded. He said, sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. while I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down to heaven. Then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. At once the man was cured, he picked up his mat and walked. That's our story for tonight, guys. And I can't wait to break it down. We're going to look at the story a little bit more. And hopefully, as we look at the story, hopefully we can begin to find ourselves in the story and really where we fall. And as we do that, hope is to answer, man, why Jesus is relevant for all of us in here right now. I'll get to that later, I promise. And so I'm excited to dive into this story with you guys. But let's look at the first verse real quick that I really want to break down. That verse is this. One who was there had been invalid for 38 years. So there's a guy laying there who had been, the wording is invalid for 38 years. First off, 38 years, that is a long stinking time. It's like 2 of your guys' lives. That is a long time. Second thing to notice, man, the word invalid. If you think about the word invalid, in this scenario, the word invalid actually means like not qualified, like not able to on your own. We don't really know what he had, some sort of like physically, probably debilitating disease. I don't know, we don't know what it was, but the verse calls him invalid. So it's obvious that this guy was just in some sort of need. He was in some sort of a need for somebody, something to come and help him at this point in his life. And when I think about that verse and just the state of this guy being in need, I think it often relates to us as well. If you think about it, we're all in some sort of need. We all need something. And that's kind of the first reality that we're going to kind of come away from this scripture, is that we're all in need. Now I'll explain it a little bit more, but know that we're all in need. We're all pursuing healing of some sort. And when we pursue healing to fill a need, basically it means that we're not complete. We're not fully there. In a sense, we're broken. And I think when we actually take time to look and observe the world, it's not hard to tell that just us as human beings we're just broken people. Like, you watch the news. Me and my roommates, we love to watch college football on Saturdays. And so a lot of times when we're watching college football, we're like on our computers or we're just talking to each other, and so we don't necessarily see what's on the TV screen. But a lot of times the game will end. And what comes on after the game, usually, the news is just on there. And so the news is on there. And a lot of times we're just talking, and all of a sudden we hear this 3 men shot and killed in the library. And we're just like, oh, get this off the TV. You know, like, you just don't want to listen. No one wants to watch the negativity of the news. And it's crazy. The news is negative because the world is negative. Right? It's not hard to see. What do we see watching this? We see disease, we see pain, we see hurt. Man, it's just tough to watch sometimes. That's even on a macro scale. Let's think about it even on a micro scale. Maybe even look into a demographic like us as college students. Man, what's our need? I was reading an article online. This is crazy. There was the psychologists and sociologists who did a specific study, and they surveyed 67,000 college students in the state of Indiana. And what they kind of grabbed from the study, the conclusions they grabbed from the study are pretty crazy. It says 60% of college students consistently feel an excessive amount of anxiety. 60%. And then 40% of them reported depression symptoms so severe that it would be hard for them to function. And that was the conclusion of this article, of this study. And that was in 2017. 2 years later, I'm guessing, man, we're probably not in that much better condition right now. And if that's y'all, man, we have a need. We just have a need. If that's you, that is completely okay. Obviously, you're not alone. And I'm going to tell you about something that's going to help you tonight, that can help you tonight. But maybe you're in this room and you're like, man, okay, depression, anxiety, that's not me. But you probably, more than likely, still have a need. Maybe it's just a broken relationship. Maybe it's, man, a girlfriend or a boyfriend that you just can't seem to get along with. Or maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's some sort of addiction. Maybe it's just as simple as, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't know what career, I need some help. I don't know what I want to do for this. We're all pursuing something, and we all have a need. None of us are complete. None of us are complete. And if you're in the room tonight and you're like, dude, whatever, I'm good. I don't have a need. I'm good right where I'm at. And I really challenge you to think about it. Are you really satisfied with where your life's at right now? And you might have the killer GPA. You might have the 4.0. You might have the incredible social life. But man, a lot of times our achievements don't measure up to how satisfied we are. Our achievements don't correlate with our fulfillment. And check this out. This is Deion Sanders. And Deion is arguably one of the greatest athletes to ever live. He played 2 sports professionally, the MLB and the NFL. And Deion actually went on this incredible survival trip with Bear Grylls. And you got to know Bear Grylls, he's the guy that's like the man vs. wild, like I'm going to go out there with nothing and hang out. And so they filmed this trip, and in the middle of this trip, they actually caught Deion and Bear talking about life. And Deion actually talked about his achievements. And just listen to how Deion talks about what he's achieved and his perspective on it. Check out this video.
Deion is the only man in history to play in both the Super Bowl and the World Series. He dominated both sports for more than a decade, earning himself 2 Super Bowl rings and a spot in the Hall of Fame.
So out of all of the sporting moments, what was your greatest, you think? Do you ever think about those, or do you not really?
Honestly, man, behind the veil, behind the mask, I'm really different than my public persona. My public persona is prime time, you know?
So even when you won the Super Bowl and stuff?
When I won the Super Bowl, when I won my first Super Bowl.
What did you do?
I was the first one on the bus, first one to bed. I didn't even go to party. It was something missing inside, man. It wasn't fulfilling as I thought it was. It wasn't about the things, the outward things, because I had power, money, and sex, but it wasn't fulfilling.
So you had all of that power, money,
and sex,
and it wasn't just...
It was just an empty feeling still.
Deion is the only...
Man, isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that Deion Sanders just won a Super Bowl? Arguably one of the most sought after achievements in the country. And he's the first one on the bus home, depressed, not happy. And it was obvious that Deion had a need. And what we can take away, it's cool, this video actually goes on to talk about how Deion talks about his faith, how that's kind of fulfilled him, which is amazing. But the point behind this is that Deion Sanders achieves all of that and still says that I'm not satisfied. And the reality is that all of us have not really achieved that, probably. And so for us to say that we're not satisfied, man, would be true. Is that, man, we all have a need. We're all pursuing something. And regardless of the problem, regardless of whether it's depression, regardless of whether it's an addiction, whatever it might be, there's a root to all of this. And the root to all of that, and all of it because of our brokenness, is this thing called sin. Sin is just what separates us from God. Sin is what separates us from God. Why is there pain? Why is there hurt? Why is there disease in the world? It's because of sin. And long ago, when God created man, Adam and Eve took of the apple and they ate the forbidden fruit. And ever since that moment, everybody who has been born into a world of sin. Check out this verse. We can't really escape it. It's Ecclesiastes 7:20. Indeed, there is not a righteous man on earth who continually does good and who never ever sins. No man on earth. All are broken and all are in need. Sin separates us from God. You remember last week when George was talking about God's design and how God's original design was for us to reflect Him. Well, what sin did is it kind of just disrupted that reflection. No longer are we reflecting Him. It disrupted and cut off that relationship. And because of that, that's why we pursue things. That's why we are in need. We can't fill the need on our own, but yet we try and try and try. And that is the second reality, is that we endlessly try to fill the need. We endlessly try to fill the need. Let's go back to our story here and let's see kind of just what happens when Jesus talks to this man. So I'm just going to read it again so we can kind of have a clear understanding. It says this: when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the adult replied, "I have no one to help me to the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." And I want us to just think about what's actually happening in the story. Like, think about it for a second. This dude is probably lying on the ground, and he's face to face with Jesus, face to face with the Son of God, the Almighty, the All-Powerful. And Jesus says, "Bro, you want to get healed? Do you want to get well?" And this guy looks at him, and he's like, I don't know how. I can't get to the pool. I'm not physically there. I can't make it. Surely no one's going to come help me get into the pool. This guy's eyes were still on the pool. He had the Son of God in front of him, but his eyes were still on the pool. And isn't it cool that like we don't do stuff like that today? That like we don't pursue these like pagan superstitions like this guy was pursuing over Jesus? Like, isn't it awesome that we don't pursue like the placebo things, the thing that is gonna satisfy us over Jesus? Well, wait a second. Maybe we actually kind of do. Let me tell you about something that I was pursuing that I thought would fulfill me. I'm about to put up a really, really embarrassing picture of myself. This is me my freshman year in high school. Right there. Smack that. Yep. I don't know if you're laughing at how skinny I am or my 19 likes. Yeah. Hey, this was 2009, guys. That's like when Instagram was just popping out. That's like correlated to like 4,000 likes today. You know what I'm saying? So, but I was a wrestler. At this point in time, this was state tournament my freshman year. I was 95 pounds. 95 pounds. If it was a heavy wind day, I literally had to stay inside. It was dangerous for me to walk outside. Just kidding. But this was something that I pursued in high school, and as I got bigger, not a lot, but a little bit, I got a little bigger. From this point, I just began to get really good at wrestling, and I began to pursue it as if it was something that was satisfying me. I began to sacrifice for it. My junior and senior year, I didn't play football or baseball, two sports that I love, because I really wanted to pursue wrestling and be the best that I could at it. And that was what I was pursuing. I was pursuing that to fill my need. And I remember my senior year at the state championship tournament, I lost my last match. And I walked off, and I found like this dark spot in the arena underneath the bleachers. And I just sat there and cried. And I was like, it's over. Like, it's all the end. Then a couple weeks later, I was like, what in the world was I thinking? Putting all of my hope and all of what I thought was going to satisfy me into this sport. And it just ended like that. See, I thought it was going to satisfy me. And it did for a little bit. It did for 4 years. It was amazing. It was so fun. But yet it ended like that. And I think probably for us in this room, wrestling is not something that we're all running to, right? But college students run to something to fill their need. And so I want you guys to actually just discuss this. And someone around you, man, talk about this question right here. What are some things you think college students run towards to fill their need? Turn to a partner, talk about that for a second, and I'll bring it back up. Just some like initial quick thoughts that come to my mind of what college students pursue. Here's success, money, involvement, GPA, relationships, drugs or alcohol, social life, athletics, popularity, fame, career, comfort, security. Now these don't cover it all, but in a lot of ways as college students, these are some of the things that we just pursue naturally and that we think is going to fill us up. But man, what's crazy is that none of these things were designed to fill the need that we have. None of them were designed to fill the need. Wrestling wasn't designed to fill the need. Relationships not designed to fill the need that you have. The perfect GPA is not designed to fill the need that you have. And some of these things are awesome things to pursue. Absolutely. And they're amazing things to pursue, but they're not meant to fulfill you. That's not how God created them to be. If you think about it, a lot of times these things can trick you. It's like a placebo effect. You think they're fulfilling for a moment, but they never last. Let's think about this. Let's think back to our story. Let's think back to our dude, our invalid dude, who's just laying there on the ground. Let's just imagine this. Can you think about what would have happened if he actually made it to the pool? He can't move, right? He's physically disabled. So if he somehow found the pool and lunged himself in there, what are the chances of that guy getting out of the pool? Pretty slim, probably. And what he thought was going to save him eventually could have burning him in the end. And I think that's what sometimes can happen for us. What we think is going to save us, what we're pursuing, that's satisfying us now in the moment, it might eventually burn us in the end. And we can sometimes chase these things endlessly. But here's the truth, and here's the secret, man, to the relevancy of Jesus. This is it right here. To why he matters. This is the truth to why he is appropriate for you guys as college students. It's just that Jesus satisfies the need. Jesus satisfies the need. Pretty simple. You probably saw that coming. But have you ever actually thought about it? Like how does he satisfy? I hear that all the time. Jesus is Savior. Y'all need Jesus. Like I drive back home to Nashville and I literally see 40 billboards that say Jesus saves on my way there. You guys hear it all the time. Have you ever thought, man, how? How does Jesus save? Let's go back real quick. Let's look at the last verse of our story. John 5, 8, 9. Then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. Now it's crazy when we read more scripture. It's amazing. What's cool about it is that Jesus says, I didn't just come to heal the physically ill. I didn't just come to heal the physically sick. I came for way much more than that. I came to seek and save those who were lost, to seek and save those who were broken. I came to fill the need of those who had one. And Jesus is here for every single one of us. This was not his primary purpose to heal these. That was not his primary purpose. His primary purpose is for everybody in this room. That's what he came to do. And out of that, what he had to do was all of our sin that we were talking about earlier that none of us can escape. He put that on his back. He went to the cross. He died for it. And 3 days later, he rose again. And in that, he created a way for us to get back to God. He created us a way to get back to God. Check out this quote right here. It's by a philosopher who says this: there's a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of each man which cannot be satisfied by any created thing, but only by God the Creator. Key part as to why Jesus is relevant. Made known through Jesus Christ. You see, Jesus is God's chosen avenue to bring us back together. Jesus is relevant because he's what connects us back to God. And nothing on this earth is greater than filling that need than that which it was designed for, God himself. Nothing is greater than God himself filling that need. And it's a relationship with him that we get to have. He restores us back to how we were originally designed to be right with God. Check out this verse right here, Psalm 107:9. To this, for he satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul he fills with good things. Man, that is powerful. That is powerful. Jesus is powerful, man. That's mighty. This dude is a dangerous God. He's a dangerous God. And I want you guys to see a practical life of someone who just tasted his relevance a little bit. And of someone who's prioritized him, and of someone, man, who's pursued Jesus to fill his needs. So y'all go ahead and make some noise for Jay Payne as he comes back.
Like Sim says, my name is Jaden Payne, and guys, before college, I didn't see God relevant to my life at all. Growing up, my family did a decent job of forcing me to go to church, but sadly, that's where my journey ended. my faith kind of began Sunday morning, 10:30, when those church bells started ringing, and it ended that same Sunday morning when church got over. Throughout my first 18, 19 years of living at home, I can honestly say that I didn't own a Bible. I don't think I ever read a Bible, and I don't think I ever had a faith discussion outside of the church. So at a pretty young age, I just decided that I didn't need God in my life, that He wasn't a part of my life, and I was going to just do what I do. So I started living my life that way. I started trying to find happiness apart from God. I started using things like alcohol. I started relying on relationships for my happiness. I started just even seeking out popularity just to cover up my insecurities. And I lived that way throughout my whole high school career, even doing the same thing going into college. So got to college. No future plans, no idea what I was doing with my life, but I just didn't really care. I just thought, new place, new me, like this is gonna be a fresh start. But guys, I was so wrong. I found myself relying on the same exact things I was in high school, the alcohol, the relationships, and the popularity. I found myself, I drank so much that it just turned me into an ugly dude, just a mean guy that I knew I didn't want to be, and I knew I wasn't. I relied on relationships for happiness. Just the popularity, I didn't know anybody in college, so there's no happiness there. But since all those things were stripped from me, it got to a point where I was more depressed than I ever thought I could be. There I was just in October, my freshman year. It was basically a year ago. I spent most of my nights just crying in bed underneath the covers, calling my mom, telling her I just wanted to drop out of college. I stopped going to class because I thought there was no point anymore. And I got on antidepressant meds. I started seeing a therapist. I mean, guys, I was there. Most importantly, I was struggling with suicidal thoughts daily. But after living a month or so like this, I just naturally started searching for something else out there, like some sort of happiness that would just bring me some sort of happiness. So at that point, I realized that I had literally tried everything out there. I tried all those things, and there was only one thing left that I knew some people were doing, and that was their faith. And out of my desperation, I decided to try it. So there I was. I started doing this faith thing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I started going to church literally every single night. And I started to pray, asking God for help. But like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. I was at the point where I needed someone to show me the way. And that is when I met a man named Baylor Kelly. He's actually the better looking one up on the screen up there. So, never talked to Baylor in my whole life. I heard what he was about. I heard that he could possibly help me. So one night, I was so lonely, so depressed, I just sent him a text. I got a hold of his phone number and I sent him a text. And I confessed everything to him. I told him how lost I was. I told him that I needed help and that I was trying to pursue this faith thing and I didn't really know what I was doing. And if any of you guys know Baylor, he was basically like sick dude, just like meet me in the Durban a couple days and let's talk. So there I was a couple days later, sitting across from a table of a dude I just poured my heart out to over a text. So there I was, and for the first time in my life, guys, Baylor opened up a Bible in front of me and showed me a verse. He showed me that God didn't want me feeling this way. He didn't want me feeling depressed. He didn't want me to be having these suicidal thoughts or fighting that daily. He didn't want me to feel lost anymore. And he actually kind of showed me that it was through my sin, the things I was indulging in, that was separating me farther from God and was preventing me from letting God help me. So I finally made that decision to let God help me and accept Him in my life. I got a verse here for you guys. 1 John 5:4-5. We achieve this victory through our faith. And who can win the battles of this world? Only those who believe in Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Guys, I figured that out. I figured out that it wasn't through the alcohol. It wasn't through the relationships. It wasn't through the luxurious things I was trying to surround myself with. It was only through a relationship with Jesus Christ where I would have been saved. It was only through my faith. Guys, since I made that decision, I can honestly say that this past 10 months that I've been walking with God have been the happiest time of my life. Thanks.
that awesome? Man, that is so cool, man, to hear that story. And I think it's cool too, man. It's not, man, as we start to follow Christ, man, it's not like it's all sunshine and butterflies by any means. That is not at all the case. And a lot of times it can be tough, it can be hard, and you go through different things. But man, one thing that you do have that not anybody else who doesn't follow Christ has is this, and that's hope. It's the power of hope. It's the power of, man, no matter what, at some point, man, I'm going to get to see Jesus face to face and meet the guy who's been important to my life. Man, that's the power of hope. Man, that is alone is enough to satisfy and fulfill a need. So the question tonight you got to ask yourself is this. It's the same question, man, that Jesus had for this guy. Do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? Do you actually want to experience the satisfaction? And that a lot of people are experiencing. It's a walk with God. It's God filling the gap. And my hope for you guys tonight is that you just take a step forward in your faith. Just think through, how can I take a step forward in your faith? So as we close, man, just go ahead and talk about this with someone around you. Just talk, kind of a deep subject, so just talk about it, man. Answer some of these questions with folks around you as we close, and then an MC is going to come back up and close us out.